All right, let's talk about something we all have but maybe don't think about nearly enough: the maps we use for our own minds. Today we're going to unpack a really powerful new way of looking at your inner world, so let's just dive right in.
So let me just ask you this. How do you actually picture your mind? When you think about your thoughts and your feelings and all your behaviors, what's the metaphor that pops into your head? Because for, well, centuries, we've been leaning on some pretty specific and maybe kind of outdated ideas.
For the longest time, the big idea, and you can thank Freud for this one, was that the mind is like a hydraulic engine, right? A super complex machine with all these built-up pressures and drives that, needed to be released or rerouted. If something was wrong with you, it was basically a mechanical problem that needed fixing.
Then, more recently, we got a bit of an upgrade. The metaphor became a computer. Our mind is the hardware, and our thoughts, well, that's the software. So if you're struggling, it's just because you're running some buggy code, these cognitive distortions that just need to be debugged and rewritten. Simple enough.
But here's the thing. Whether you think of it as a machine or a computer, there's a huge problem. They're both totally linear. They assume that A causes B. A bad thing happens, and it causes depression. A weird thought pops up, and it causes anxiety. But that's not really how it feels, is it? Our inner worlds are so much messier, more tangled and cyclical than that.
So let's introduce a new metaphor, or actually a really, really ancient one, the Ouroboros. The snake that's eating its own tail. This symbol, it perfectly captures this idea of the mind as a self-contained, self-feeding system. A constant, endless loop, where the end is always the beginning.
And that brings us to the absolute core concept here, the recursive loop. Your mind isn't just reacting to stuff, it's a closed system that is constantly metabolizing its own experience. So a thought isn't just an effect of something that happened, it immediately becomes a cause. It triggers a feeling, which then inspires an action, which, you guessed it, feeds right back and reinforces that original thought.
And look, this makes the difference so clear. Linear thinking just says a traumatic event causes depression. A leads to B, end of story. But recursive thinking sees the whole messy picture. The depression leads to pulling away from friends, which leads to feeling lonely, which then makes the depression even deeper. It's a powerful, self-sustaining feedback loop.
This quote just nails it, doesn't it? Every ripple within the system eventually boomerangs, influencing the source. It means nothing, absolutely nothing, is happening in a vacuum inside your head. Every little thought, every feeling, every memory, it all sends out these ripples that eventually come all the way back around and affect the entire system. It's all connected.
So, how does this whole system even work? Well, it's not being run by a single CEO. This Ouroboros model suggests that we aren't really a single unified I. Nope. Our minds are way more like a complex, sometimes chaotic internal family, made up of all these different sub-personalities, or, as they're called, parts.
And I bet you recognize some of these parts already. We've all got them. Like the critic, right? The part that enforces all the rules, but can easily become a source of toxic shame. Or the defender, whose job is to protect you from threats, but can push you into avoidance or even addiction. And of course, the inner child, the source of all that raw emotion and creativity, which can also become super volatile. Each part has a job to do, but man, can they go into overdrive.
Okay, so we've got these looping systems, and they're run by all these different inner parts. But here's the crucial insight. Not all loops are created equal. Some of them keep us totally stuck in patterns of suffering, while others can become these powerful engines for growth.
First, you've got the stable cycle. And honestly, this is the trap. It's that rigid, repeating feedback loop that just wants to keep everything the same, even if the same is really painful. Think of it like a broken thermostat that's just stuck on a bad temperature. The system's #1 goal isn't your happiness, it's continuity. It's just trying to resist change at all costs.
But then you have the adaptive cycle. This is where things get interesting. This is your zone of resilience. It's when your mind hits a stressful situation, gets knocked off balance just a little bit, learns a new way to cope, and then settles back down at a new, healthier baseline. This is learning. This is growth.
And finally, there's the big one, the transformative spiral. Whoa. This is a massive paradigm shift, and it's often powered by a positive feedback loop that pushes the whole system way out of its comfort zone. This is that rock bottom moment, or maybe a spiritual awakening, where the old way of doing things just completely fractures and makes way for something brand new. Okay, so this is all fascinating theory, right? We've got stable traps, adaptive pivots, and these huge transformative spirals. But here's the real question, the one that actually matters. Can we do more than just sit back and watch them happen? Can we intentionally steer our own loops? Can we turn them from traps into spirals of growth?
And the answer is a resounding yes, we absolutely can. This final section is all about the how. It's about shifting our whole mindset from trying to fight the cycle or escape it to consciously working with it and transforming it from the inside out.
And the cool thing is, there's a clear 4-step process for this. First, you just map the pattern. Literally describe the loop that keeps happening to you. Second, you find your resources. What healthy patterns or coping skills do you already have in your toolbox? Third, and this is the game changer, you introduce tension. You challenge that old tired story with a new, maybe even paradoxical question. And finally, you use that tension to build a new story, a new core truth that can start guiding the loop in a much healthier direction.
And really, this all comes down to one major shift in perspective. You can't actually break the loop. Your mind is just fundamentally recursive. That's how it works. So the goal isn't to fight that reality, but to accept it, to embrace it, and to learn how to steer it yourself.
And this leads us to the ultimate goal of this whole framework, a concept with a pretty wild name, the radiant chomp. This is that moment of profound, radical acceptance. The snake isn't eating its tail because it's hungry or self-destructive, it's doing it from a sense of total completeness, integrating every single one of its parts, the good, the bad, the shadow, and the light.
The source material puts this so beautifully. The loop does not end, but it changes, and in that change lies the freedom of the Ouroboros. Freedom isn't about escaping the loop, it's about mastering its flow.
So we'll leave you with this question to just sit with for a bit. Take a real look at the patterns in your own life, the cycles that keep showing up over and over again. What story is your loop telling you right now? And what new story would you like it to tell? Thanks so much for tuning in.